Karloy replied that he didn't care about that. Yvonne decided to pretend that she hadn't heard the Emperor's harsh words and wouldn't worry about it. Guy said she was still the Duke's daughter, not the Empress. Her father wondered why they weren't eating together, and why they hadn't shared a bed yet. Karloy said her father is aware of the details of their family life and asked, "Is she even imagining it?" The girl figured that someday this would all be over, so she would just have to be patient. The man kept talking. He told her father that she often had no appetite, so they didn't eat together. Yvonne answered him, "Good." But when Karloy heard it, he got angry and asked how she could say good. He hadn't even finished. Yvonne realized she had answered too soon, so she apologized to him and told him she had other things on her mind. But the guy said it's not the first time, and she always responds to him like that. He doesn't even know what she might be thinking about during her days at the palace. She has nothing to do, but her father demands that they tolerate each other's company at the same table every day. Yvonne, even if she pretends that those words didn't hurt her, she finds it hard to bear Karloy's hostile gaze. He hasn't changed in appearance. He's the same as he was when he was a boy. But inside, that boy is gone. Yvonne didn't understand whether Karloy wanted her dead or wanted to kill her himself. Seeing him tore at her soul. She told His Majesty that he did not often spoil her with his presence at dinner, and if he so desired, they might not come at all. At this point, he slammed his fist on the table and told her to speak to the Duke herself. Maybe he would listen to her. Yvonne figured he certainly wouldn't listen to her. She wouldn't say that out loud to Karloy, though. It's always like this with him. When he approaches a girl, she can't ignore him, but whatever answers she gives only make him angry. She knows full well that Karloy hates the Duke, and so she tries to tolerate it. But sometimes she hates Karloy too. There's nothing more she can do, so she asks if he wants to spend the night, tonight in her chambers. Karloy, thinking the situation over, asked if it was her father who had advised her to suggest it. Yvonne would have been happy if he had simply advised her, but as it was, he was threatening her. She wants the guy to just walk in. If she says he didn't show up, the Duke won't just let it go. However, there are too many eyes and ears in the palace. Her servants watch and report every rustle that is heard in the palace. And Yvonne's under a spell, so she can't say anything. When Karloy remained silent, she asked what she could do to get him to come to her palace. Karloy, getting up from the table, said he would only come if the girl disappeared. Yvonne thought it so low, even when she begged him, forgetting her pride, gets only rejection. Karloy is never there for her, and she hasn't seen her mom since she became Empress, and all she wants to do is hug her. She doesn't understand why her life has to be like this. And at the next dinners, Karloy began to bring the future second Empress with him. Yvonne at first thought he was bringing her to teach her a lesson. A man who had no interest in girls suddenly takes a second wife. Besides, among the countries on the continent, only girls from Croatian and L'Artois could be taken as concubines, and the official status of a second wife had not been thought of for 200 years. And it's surprising enough that the Emperor decided to revive the tradition. At first, the girl thought that the second wife had arisen just to put her in her place. But next to this girl, Carla looks really happy. Yvonne must admit that she too would easily fall in love with a girl like Kiana Roden. She's the kind of girl who could revive a defunct title. A lot had changed, but as Yvonne looked at Karloy's smile, she realized that she was still the same, and most likely she always would be. At that moment, the girl remembered how they had sat in the rain under a tree as children, and she asked him what he was even dreaming about. Karloy said that he dreams of living happily with the person he loves. But Yvonne was very surprised by this, because she thinks that there is nothing special about having a family. The girl said that her mother was enough for her, but Karloy was outraged by her remark. He asked her if she couldn't dream of something like that. Why not something special? He wants to know what it's like to have someone who will always be there for you, in one where neither blood nor money will help. Yvonne figured that if he had actually met the one girl who would soothe his heart, there was nothing she could do about it, because she could never be that person for him. But still, Yvonne can't forget the smile with which he looked at her as a child. Even though the girl knows she can't be close to him, she can't get those thoughts out of her head. Yvonne misses those times very much, so she goes crazy. She misses that carefree childhood when everything was good between them. The moment she broke the mirror, the maids came running in and immediately asked Her Majesty, "What is it?" Yvonne tells them to put away all the mirrors because the girl doesn't want to see herself in them. The maid said that she had broken all of them, so there wasn't a whole one left. But Yvonne replied that she had said not to use the glass or anything with her face on it. The girl said she wants to die. Every time she sees how much she looks like the Duke, she immediately wants to shred her whole face. Of course, Yvonne doesn't just look like him. She has inherited from him the fact that she can't even go near peaches and buttercups. The maid turned to the Empress and asked what was wrong. Let her tell her what the problem is. Yvonne asked Marin if she didn't realize it herself. But the girl said it was not her fault. Yvonne asked the woman to leave her alone. She doesn't want to hurt the innocent. The maid said she would listen to her, and with those words went out the door. But at that moment, Carloy came up to her and asked where the Empress was. Miriam said she was inside. When the Emperor walked into the room, Yvonne regretted it because she didn't want him to ever see her in this state. The girl didn't understand what he was doing here, and the moment he was examining her wound, the girl remembered a moment from their childhood. Carloy, when the girl hurt herself, asked if she was worried that she was bleeding. Yvonne told him that she was not, because she had lived in this place before, but that she was not used to shivering like that. But he replied that he didn't mean that and asked if she was in pain. Carloy said that apparently she was not at all ashamed of the mess she had made, and that one should be moderate in one's display of character. Yvonne couldn't take it anymore. She stood up and said that he was the one who needed to know the measure. He was treating her like an insensitive villain who could only hide behind her father's back. The girl asked, "Isn't it funny, the anger of the Empress, the only daughter of a powerful duke, doesn't go beyond that room?" Carloy mockingly asked if she was doing this for him. She wanted to say that's just the way it is. Yvonne thought that he was right after all. If she really did everything for Carloy, she would be better off dead right away. And if she was the Duke's faithful dog, then Carloy's words would be nothing to her. In what position a girl is in, she can't do anything. So she needs to start doing something. The next day when her father came to see her, and he immediately started yelling at his daughter, asking if she had lost her mind. He didn't understand how it was that his daughter was going to arrange the coronation of the second Empress when she herself had recently become one. Yvonne, in a calm voice, said that the ceremony would summarize the chance to poison the second Empress. It was unknown when the Emperor would bring her closer to the affairs of state. So this is the most opportune moment. She also said that on top of that, the Emperor won't let her meet Kiana Rodin in person. Her father was surprised and asked if she really wanted him to poison her. Yvonne replied that it was exactly like that. They had to get rid of the second Empress anyway, and it was better to do it before her coronation. The Duke told her that however she would be the first to fall under suspicion if Kiana was poisoned at the ceremonies she had prepared. Yvonne told him that he would already be able to influence the crowd and resolve the situation. She would still be an unknown and an upstart, not a member of the dynasty's ruling family. The Duke asked, and how did such thoughts get into her little head? He would take care of the preparations and asked that she prepare him a list of the names of the servants who would work at the ceremony. The next day there was a heavy downpour. Marian told Mistress that it was raining very hard today, so it would be difficult to go out for a walk. The maid said that all the confusion was due to the damage caused by the bad weather. Yvonne said that nothing would happen to her in the garden, so everything would be fine. Marian asked if the garden, in her opinion, isn't part of Crochin. She thinks it doesn't rain there, and why she only goes there every day if she can't stand flowers. Yvonne goes there because her mother really liked the flowers. Then she asked, "Wouldn't it be enough to just not go to the outdoor garden?" Marian agreed, and said she would escort her to Enter's room in the inner garden. As they approached the garden, the maid asked why she was not going inside. Yvonne said she would stand in front of the entrance for a while, wanting some fresh air, and the girl herself thought for a moment that she couldn't postpone the coronation of the second Empress or ignore the Duke's insistence. So she stammered about poisoning, but Yvonne didn't know what to do. 14 years ago, she told little Carl to hang on to life and do his best. And in the end, she lives her life floating downstream, because she is not capable of anything else. The girl looked at the rain and thought it would be better if she was washed away with it. But at that moment, Carlroy came up to her. She had definitely heard that he wasn't interested in the place and didn't frequent it. But now he was standing in front of her, and it came just as she was thinking about past times. It only got weirder, but she answered his question by saying she was just out for a walk. Then he started cursing at her. At that moment, Yvonne thought that he didn't even think about what was on a man's mind. No matter how much rain fell, he didn't seem to remember anything. But she thought it wasn't worth paying attention to stupid Carloy, so she just apologized to him. And the next moment, she's already lying on top of him away from the fallen branch. Yvonne got off him and, apologizing, said she had done it unknowingly. Carloy didn't understand what had happened at all. In fact, Yvonne's body reacted first, ignoring the decision she made earlier. Even she finds this rescue strange, let alone the Emperor himself. But then she thought it was nothing strange, because she had just done the same thing he had once done. Yvonne had merely repaid a debt from her childhood. It was a similar situation and also similar words. How she wished Carloy would remember her just once. He answers her so coldly. So she thought he must have buried all his memories like something dirty. She wondered if it would have been different if she had died. At this point, the girl had everything clenched in her chest and couldn't breathe, so she immediately started walking away from him. When she ran into Kiana, she thought that a girl like that couldn't possibly have problems, so she was jealous of her. But she's such an innocent person, Yvonne doesn't know what to do if she dies because of her. If the Carloys really love her, how will she do it? Yvonne doesn't know how to get the antidote for her secretly and give it to her beforehand. Yvonne thought at that moment that he had said he would show her the garden, when he would make good on that promise. Then she realized that Carl had not kept any of his words. A promise to show her the garden, a promise to remember and protect her, but none of that he had fulfilled. The next day, Yvonne and her maid went outside for some fresh air. Marion asked the girl if she was still worried. Yvonne replied that not much. Then the maid said that was why she had discouraged her from sending a secret message. It was too dangerous, even if her heart wasn't in the right place. But the girl said she couldn't let an innocent person die anyway, so she'd rather not show up. Besides, Kiana is the only girl in the palace that Carl has feelings for. At that moment, Yvonne approached one of the flower beds, and the maid said that she had better not touch those flowers. When the girl asked why, Marion was surprised and asked, "Didn't she know? It's a suicide flower that only blooms in the Maha Empire." Yvonne asked what she meant by the suicide flower. Marion said it is called Sarana. When touched by an insect, the flower spews liquid and takes its own life. At this point, the girl thought that even flowers make their own choices and she couldn't. But then suddenly, as she reached for the flower, then a brilliant idea came to her. So she shouted to the maid that she would drink the poison herself. "Marion," said she, "that there's no way. Does she really want to die?" But Yvonne said that wasn't the case at all. She would take the antidote beforehand. The maid was frightened and said, "What if the antidote doesn't work? The Duke's no fool." Yvonne said that if they could find out what kind of poison beforehand, they could find a good antidote. But Marion said it would be better to give it to Lady Roden. The girl asked, and how would she approach a girl from the Roden family, albeit with the antidote in her hands? Especially even if something goes wrong, she won't think she did it on purpose. Then the Duke wouldn't hurt her mom either. Marion was still worried. She said it was too dangerous. The Duke would know right away that she had changed the glasses. Yvonne replied that there would be no witnesses or hard evidence, because he always gets rid of those involved. She said that if the maid wouldn't help her, she would do it anyway, with the help of another maid. But then she would be caught at once, and the Duke would not leave her alone. Marion didn't understand what she was willing to sacrifice her life for. Did she really have feelings for His Majesty? Yvonne said nothing to this. Then the maid took her hands, and Yvonne said she wanted to try making choices too. Then Marion told her to be sure to take the antidote, and she would find out for herself somehow. So she should take care of herself. Yvonne thanked her for it. And now the day of the coronation of the second Empress had arrived. When it was time to drink the wine, the girl held the poison vocalizer belonging to Kiana in her hands. This choice might be the last of her life, but she felt so light at heart. The girl wants to run away so badly if she's been driven to such extremes. Would her mom be spared too? The Duke knew there would come a time when all would be forgotten. And for what it's worth, Yvonne was good too. When she had drunk the poison, she looked at Carl and thought that he had wanted her to disappear so badly. Why was he standing there like a frightened fool? The girl thought that dying like this in his arms was more than not a bad thing. As a child, when Yvonne first met the boy, he yelled at her to run away because it was too dangerous in that place. It was originally inhabited by bandits who had found refuge there. In the dark forest, they kidnapped, intimidated, beat, and tortured people. Yvonne had to earn her own living at the time, so she was no stranger to helping irresponsible people run their households. But what surprised her was that this was the first time they had kidnapped a child, apparently her age. The guy kept telling her not to stand, but to run away, for now. Maybe Yvonne couldn't believe he was worried about her right now. She'd be desperately asking for help if she were him. The girl didn't understand how one could worry more about a person they were seeing for the first time than they did about themselves. But at that moment, a man came out and asked Lou if she had finished cleaning up already. He walked up to the girl and asked her what she was standing there out of. Maybe she had forgotten that she was being paid for her work. The boy who was tied up when he heard it was in shock. He asked, "Is she really in cahoots with these idiots?" But the man yelled at the boy and asked if he would shut up or not. Yvonne at this moment was very frightened to see a child being beaten, much more horrible than an adult. So the girl decided that it would be better to leave. But then suddenly some man blocked her way and asked her where she was going. Then he said she was just in time. Let her bring him the thing that the man in black will give him. He'll be waiting behind the witch's tree. He said the guards wouldn't check the child's medication, especially since everyone here was aware of her mother's illness. Yvonne thought that would be much better than getting away to the sound of a beating. Poor boy. The girl ran into the woods and thought she would be back sometime closer to nightfall. After a while, it was starting to get dark, and she was on her way to give this package away. Yvonne wondered. Still the same boy sitting there. It had been hours. It should have been over by now. But when she entered the employer's compound, she saw him. When she looked at his face, she realized that he had no skin left on him. Yvonne told him that by resisting, he would only provoke them more, so it would be better to just keep quiet. She moved closer to the boy and wanted to touch his wound, but he immediately shoved her away and told her to get her dirty hands off. Yvonne said his face was much dirtier than her hands, and went in to wipe his wounds anyway. Then the boy asked, "How old is she anyway, the caring kidnapper? I haven't had enough yet." He kept asking that question. But the girl still didn't answer. Carloy said he was 13. Then the girl had no choice but to say it. She said she was 14, but she thought he was a year older than she was. The boy said she was lying because she was a head shorter than him. Yvonne got angry and told him to shut up. The girl wiped off all the blood, and apparently he hadn't been beaten on his face. Only his cheeks were swollen, and the corners of his mouth were slightly split. Then the boy said that she was in a gang with them and pretended to be a good Samaritan. The girl asked, "Is he pushing it?" After all, she could hit him now too, but he didn't say anything to that. So she silently continued to wipe his wounds. When she said that everything was ready, she looked at him and thought, "Why is he so handsome? She thinks she's never seen anyone more handsome than him." Then he asked why she was looking that way. Yvonne replied that she had heard that everything beautiful had thorns, but the boy said that was not true. Then she gave him a piece of bread and thought that he was beautiful only when he was silent, and she should help him by giving him bread. She said she could not leave him to starve. The boy took a bite in surprise and asked, "What kind of bread is this?" He tasted it for the first time. Then he began to chew it with pleasure. Yvonne said, "Doesn't he recognize it? It's a cordu?" The boy replied that he had never even heard of it. She thought it was the only bread she could eat, just people's corda of barley dough. She thought that he must be from a richer family than she imagined herself to be. Then she told him to mind his own business and asked him what his name was. The boy was surprised and asked, "Why should she know that?" But Yvonne said that if he answered, she would give him more bread. Then he asked, "Does she really think he can be bribed so easily?" The girl said it was a pity, and she had jam too. So she took out a jar and asked him if he had tasted piñata jam. She said it's hard to explain what it tastes like, just incredible. And at that moment the boy said in a hushed voice that he was Carl. Yvonne, grinning, said that she hadn't heard something. Carl asked her not to scoff because the second time he spoke he certainly wouldn't. The girl knew it, but she doesn't understand why she was then. It's contrived pride. Then she gave him more bread, spreading jam on it. After living a little, he asked why she was doing this. Is she going to set him free? Yvonne ignored his questions and told him to eat more. Then Carl got angry and told her to stop being so nice and go away, because she's no better than those idiots. But Yvonne kept sitting there looking at him. Afterwards, she said he had crumbs all over his face. She added that it was delicious, and she can see that. She doesn't understand why it was spoiled, as if it was some kind of nasty thing she ate. Carl, when he heard that he had crumbs on his face, asked where and have her put them away as soon as possible. The girl laughed and answered to make him calm down. It was a joke. Then the boy began to swear at her, but she gave him more bread and told him that she was yelling too loudly, so let him sit quietly. She applied masse to his wounds and thought she was done with that. And lastly, she smeared mud on her hands and stained him a little. Carl asked what she was doing that. Yvonne explained that she would be killed if they saw her treating him well. Carl got angry and said, "Is giving some bread a good relationship? Then can she not feed him anymore? First to wipe and then to stain. Are you out of your mind?" At this point, Yvonne wondered if she should have gone so far as to help him. However, she didn't understand how she could leave to her own devices eyes that were full of fear. She had the same look when she was desperately looking for a place to earn money. At that time, she stood up and said that she would be on her way. As the girl neared the exit, he shouted for her not to go. Yvonne stopped immediately. When she turned and looked at him, Carl told her not to leave him alone. At that moment, Yvonne heard some strange sobbing. It was his crying. The girl thought, rich or beautiful, it's all the same. Everyone feels fear the same way. He kept begging her not to leave, and cried. Then the girl sat down next to him and said that she would stay with him. That's how she stayed with Carl until dawn and knew very little about him. Only that he came from a well-to-do family, and also that the kidnapper who ordered the kidnapping is the one targeting something that belongs to his family. When she was working, she overheard her bosses talking. One of them asked what was wrong with this little one. They beat him half to death, and still he was trying to escape for the third time. The other one said they didn't know how long to keep him. The customer had left them a deposit, and now he wasn't showing up. Yvonne could tell by the look on their faces that the bandits were probably not very happy. Another said that they had already been told to just wait, and nothing was certain yet. If anything goes wrong, their heads will be the first to fly. Yvonne realized that things must not be going as smoothly as they had planned. She didn't know what to do if they tried to kill Carl, but she decided that the first thing to do was to go to him. After that, the girl went straight to him. When she came in, she saw that he was disheveled again for trying to escape. Carl must have noticed that things were not going so well. When he saw the girl, he told her to go away. Yvonne did not listen to him and continued to stand. Then he said it again, but in a rougher and louder voice. She saw Carl looking at her with a look of hatred. Even though she was close to him, she still didn't help him escape in the end. Yvonne threw the sack closer to him and said that so-and-so would leave the bread there and asked if he could handle it himself, and she would pick up the sack in the morning. She then turned around and started to leave, but as soon as the door opened, Carl cried and told her not to leave. When the girl looked at him, he said he was wrong. Let her stay with him for a while. Yvonne realized at that moment how a mother bird feels when she looks at a chick. The girl sat down next to him and told him he needn't worry, because he would soon get out of there, and they kept her for a long time. But sooner or later, everyone was released. She said it even though it wasn't true. Carl asked why she was helping these idiots. Yvonne explained that her mother was very ill, so she needed medicine and had nowhere else to earn money. She then wondered why she was telling the story in such detail. Maybe she doesn't want to seem like a bad person in his eyes. Carl asked if she was sick a lot. This was a surprise to the girl because she thought he would be sarcastic as usual, saying something like, "Is conscience sold like that?" or become derisive. But it was different. He supported her and told her not to worry because her mom would get better soon. He tried to comfort the girl. Then he asked, "How much money does she even need?" Yvonne replied that she didn't know. She had been told that she would need even more expensive medicine in the future. At that moment, Carl looked at her carefully and told her to look inside his pants. When he saw her puzzled look, he clarified that she should not look in his pockets, but inside his pants. The girl was surprised and said she wouldn't do that. Carl got angry and asked what it was. She thought it was not her underwear that she should look in, but the inside of her pants. Yvonne didn't see how this was any different from looking in his underwear. The girl had no choice, so she slid her hand into his pants. After that, she felt a baggie. When she pulled it out, she asked what it was. Carl told her to just open it. When the girl opened the bag, she saw a huge brooch with a purple crystal in it. The girl asked, "Is that a brooch?" Carl said that if she sold, she would get very good money. Yvonne asked what he was talking about. She wouldn't do that. Then the boy got angry and asked, "Is she crazy? She needs money, doesn't she?" Yvonne remained silent, thinking about the seriousness of the situation. Then she said she would not release him. Even if he gave her the brooch, only she could release him here. And even if she did it quietly, she and her mom would be in trouble later. So she handed him the pouch and told him to take it back. Carl told her not to talk nonsense. She'd rather have it than those bastards who tied him up and stole it. Yvonne asked if he was really doing it, but she still couldn't let him go. Carl asked if she thought he was hoping for mercy from someone in a gang of thugs. Yvonne was shocked. She didn't understand how he could talk like that, running to her first, when he himself had been captured. Giving away a thing whose value she couldn't even imagine was really strange to her. She thought Carl was unusual. Then the boy added that, and according to her, he'd be out soon anyway, so he didn't need the brooch anymore. Yvonne couldn't believe that he had actually taken her words seriously. She was sorry, of course, but she figured so if they gave it to her, she should take it. After all, that way she could buy her mom some medicine. Then she asked, "He really doesn't expect anything from her, does he?" Carl shouted that no, of course he didn't expect anything. Yvonne smiled and thanked him for that. Carlos said that in return, she should stay up at night and come to him more often. Yvonne said it would be as he wished, because there was nothing complicated about it in principle. But at that moment she noticed his ears. The girl noticed that he had them flushed. She didn't expect him to be like that. Carl got angry and asked why she kept looking at him. She didn't want her eyes to be so wide, but it made him uncomfortable. Yvonne asked, why on earth shouldn't she look at him? And then she said it was understandable. Filthy and scary things are not to be looked at. Carl was indignant and said he had said no such thing. Yvonne turned away from him and said that handsome guys like him think like that. It's obvious. But she said she wasn't offended. She knew she wasn't pretty. But Carl interrupted her at once, shouting that he wasn't at all. It's not that. She just has very beautiful eyes. At that moment they fell silent. It was an awkward silence. Carl was already regretting his words. But at that moment Yvonne laughed and said that apparently he was very hungry, even complimented him for getting food. Carla was surprised and asked why she suddenly took it, but then told her to just not look at him. Yvonne said that so-and-so wouldn't look at him with her eyes wide open, but Carl told her not to look at him at all. After that he turned away from her and told her to just give him that bread, chorda, because he was hungry. Yvonne got up and said it would be done, let him wait a little while, and called him a gentleman respecting him. Out of the room, she thought, he has such a cute side to him too. She didn't know if Carl was trying to please her or if she really did have pretty eyes. When she pulled the brooch out of her pocket and remembered that the other side of it glittered heavily, you can examine your reflection. When she looked at her eyes and thought that apparently they are not bad after all, the girl thought that if the bribe in his pocket, then the food cannot be delayed. At the end of the day, when Yvonne got home, she immediately ran up to her mom and said she had something to show her. A mom who was in bed asked what was causing her daughter to jump for joy like that. Yvonne showed them the sack and said it was all medicine, enough for a whole year, so she might as well not do any more needlework. Her mother picked up the bag, opened it, and saw that there were indeed many jars of medicine. Then she asked where her daughter had gotten them. Yvonne smiled and said proudly that she had certainly done nothing wrong in some places. Then she asked if she wasn't a good girl, doing her best for her beloved mother. Afterwards she asked her mother that when she was better, they would go together to look at the flowers, and she would wrap food for them to take with them on the road. Mom didn't say anything. She thought it over. Afterwards she hugged her daughter and said she would definitely go. Yvonne was glad to hear that. Of course, the result from the expensive medicines was simply impressive. 2 days after her mom started taking them, she started coughing less, and she was also able to move around more. So she started looking for something to do. Yvonne thought she should definitely tell Carl about this, to say that his help made her mom feel better, and that she was immensely grateful to him for that. She was on her way to thank him, but she heard the workers talking. One of them said that he was an unusual child, and it wouldn't be far from trouble. For that kind of money, you have to do what you're told, not shake in fear. The man asked if he thought the Duke would give them a pat on the head if they went this far and gave up. But his partner hesitated, saying it was a child after all. The other said that if they did it right, they could move to Maha's kingdom with the money they got. They could end this life once and for all. The other agreed and said that he was right about that. Another said they would be in action in 3 days. Before that time it would be necessary to prepare well. Yvonne, hearing all this, realized that they must have really intended to kill Carl. The girl became very nervous about it. Clutching the coin in her hand, she thought, thanks to Carl, she was able to buy her mom some medicine. However, if he died, it would turn out to be dirty money. Yvonne immediately thought that she shouldn't have helped him, much less taken anything in return. After that, the girl immediately rushed to him. When Carl saw her, he was very happy and asked her what she had today too. Bread? When he saw the sad look on her face, he told her not to think he was in any way complaining. But Yvonne just stood there and didn't say anything, looking very upset. Then he asked, "What's wrong? Why didn't she say anything?" For Carl helping her, she really wants to repay him in kind, so she decides she has to save this boy. The next day it rained hard just in time for her. She walked out of the store, having bought everything she needed, and thought that everything seemed right. Using the fluvy stone, which mediates rainwater, they are going to destroy the roof of the warehouse. Everything will work out if they don't get caught in a downpour during the escape. This is possible with a stone that collects the rain and carries it to another place. In that case, no one will suspect anything. Yvonne thought she should hurry, but then suddenly some man called out to her. When the girl turned around, she saw that it was the jeweler who had bought the brooch from her. She didn't understand what he wanted, so she asked him what was wrong. The man, seeing her face, said she was the boy after all, and asked where she got the brooch he had bought. Yvonne was wary and asked, "What's that for?" he asked. The jeweler inquired, "Wasn't that a skillful forgery?" The girl was surprised and asked, "Did he really think he bought a fake?" And then she thought about it, and realized that he had paid her less, because he thought the jewelry wasn't real. The jeweler was embarrassed and said it was all nonsense. Then he asked, "What's her name?" The girl said her name was Lou. The man asked, "What kind of name is that?" When he asked, "What's her last name and where does Yvonne live?" She said she didn't have a last name and lived in a slum. Then she asked him why he was asking her all this. The jeweler said she was just an obnoxious child. And then he looked and asked her in her hands if by any chance it was a fluvy stone, such a downpour in reverse. I should have gotten the onto stone. The girl asked, "Why does he care what she buys?" She didn't understand why he was picking on her. She needed to save Carl as soon as possible, and she was distracted. After that, she immediately ran to the boy. When she got there, he said that he didn't want her to spray on useless things. Yvonne asked what he was talking about, but Carl said he was saying no. The girl asked, "Is he crazy? If not now, there may not be another chance." Carl smiled and asked, "Are those idiots really going to kill him?" Yvonne shuddered and said, "Pretty much." The smile was gone from the boy's face. He slumped and said he knew it would be like this. Yvonne asked what he meant. Carl replied that he knew no one would come to rescue him. They must have decided it was best to get rid of him. The girl didn't understand how anyone could say that. She didn't understand what family in their right mind would leave a child to fend for himself. How could you leave a 13-year-old boy in an unknown place when she asked, "It's not like he's really going to die, because it's just stupid to stay in this place when there's an opportunity to escape." Carl said he's running, but where he's going next, no one's waiting for him at home, and there's nowhere else to go. So he asked that she stop if she helped him. He'd get in trouble too. Yvonne remained silent. The girl thought that Carl was just tired from his long confinement, and that's why he was saying such horrible things. However, now was not a good time to get sore, so she swung around and slapped him on the cheek to bring him to his senses. Carl, when he realized what had happened, asked what she was even doing, why she was hitting him. Yvonne ignored his question. She moved closer to him, took him by the shirt, and said that he should definitely get revenge. Let him go back home. Let him go back and find out for himself. Let him find out at whose behest he was kidnapped. Let him make those responsible wash their bloody tears away. Carl said he'll come back, and what's the use? He'll end up like this anyway. The girl shouted at him even more and told him to stop talking nonsense. She said she was asking him one last time. Is he seriously going to die in this place? Or is he going to go and try to do something? Carl hesitated but didn't answer anything. Then she looked at his upset face, let go of his shirt, and told him to forget it. Let him do what he wants. If she couldn't change his mind now, she wouldn't be able to afterwards. Ivan started to walk away, but when he saw the girl coming toward the exit, he blurted out that he would go. He's going! Ivan turned around and looked at him with a questioning look. Then Carl said that he could do something on the outside if he got out. After that, Ivan told him the whole plan. She looked out from behind the door and saw the workers there, dealing with their problems because of the rain. Closing the door, she said she had to go now, but Carl said it appeared to be raining heavily outside. Would they even survive if they ran out in this weather? Ivan taped the last stone to his body and said that in order not to die a miserable death, and put stones around him. After 2 weeks in a tied-up position, he's going to have a hard time moving, but will have to relocate himself. But at that moment, the kids heard some loud cracking. In a second, Ivan was on the floor with her eyes closed. Carl, who had covered her with himself, asked if she was okay. A slab fell on the boy. Ivan immediately stood up and asked, "Was he completely out of his mind? Why did he do it?" Carl replied that he couldn't leave a man in trouble. He was annoyed that he'd saved her and was hearing some kind of recriminations. Ivan calmed down a little and, lowering her voice, thanked him. Being quiet for a bit, she said they should leave first because the bandits would be coming soon. She took his hand, and they started walking in the direction she pointed. Carl hadn't expected such an abrupt turn of events. As they walked, all he could think about was that her hand was so warm and soft. The rain continued to pour. They were already walking through the woods, but then suddenly, Ivan failed to notice a stone that lay there and clung across it. Carl immediately ran up to her and asked if she was okay. He said that's why he said to be careful. Ivan replied that it was nothing, it was just a scratch. At this point, she stood up and told them to go faster. But Carl took her hand and said that a man who neglects his wounds cannot be healthy. Ivan doesn't understand. He's acting like this because he's from a rich family, nagging her all the time. Carl tells her to take care of herself, at least a little. The girl didn't realize what it was with him. Then she guessed. Ivan took his arm and wrapped her back around him, asking, "Did he really get hurt when he closed it with her?" Carl immediately said that no, it was because he was hitting tree branches while he was running. Ivan got angry and said he was lying and didn't even blush. Then she offered to go to the nearest cave and at least apply the cure. The boy immediately said it was unnecessary, he didn't need it. But Ivan didn't want to hear the refusal. When they found a suitable cave, they sat down there. Ivan said that since that was the case, they would wait until the rain stopped. Carl was very unhappy, but said okay. Then he turned and looked at the girl. After that, he asked her why she was helping him. Ivan was very surprised by this question. She looked into his big eyes and remembered all the good things he had done for her. Then she replied that she just couldn't leave a man in trouble. Carl was silent for a moment, and then laughed loudly afterward. Ivan was annoyed. That was because she didn't understand why he was the one laughing. Then the boy said she had such a stupid face. Ivan got angry and said that she had to go out of her way to save him and he was acting like this. After a while, he stopped laughing. The rain stopped, but they continued to sit in the cave. Then suddenly Carl looked out of the cave and told the girl to look. Ivan came up to him and he said, "Those are flowers." It was the first time he had seen them blooming outside his house. They bloom under the influence of magic, so they are a different color altogether. Ivan was surprised and asked, "Aren't the flowers that bloomed with magic prettier and brighter?" She thought to herself that he must not like it very much when magic was used for such simple things. Carl said that the gardener had told him that wildflowers, even with magic, would never bloom the same way. The differences would remain, though barely noticeable. He said that this flower even looked like her in some ways. Ivan was very surprised at that. She didn't understand what that flower was like. Carl said that she didn't like flowers. Ivan said indifferently that, "I don't like flowers, it's all nonsense, because flowers are flowers." Then she added that apparently he liked them very much. Carl said he loves to look at them. The flowers seem to slow down time. He'd love to look at them forever. Ivan said that her mom loved flowers too, so she had always wanted a big garden. Carl replied that he had a huge garden at home, and she would love it. He would definitely show it to her someday. Yvonne was a little embarrassed, but said okay and thanked him. Carl looked at her and asked, "How long is it to go from this cave?" Yvonne replied that if they went forward, they would soon come out into the marquee. She said it's safe there, so everything will be fine. Markia is the city where there is a Margrave. Only there Carl will be safe. Then the boy told her to wait out the rain in the cave and go back home and run away with her mother far from the village. Yvonne was surprised and asked why they had to run away. Carlos said that by then the bandits must have noticed his body was gone. Yvonne still didn't see what the difference was. They'd put him in the dead and forget him anyway. He said he just doesn't know the Duke. As soon as he knew the case was a failure, he would get rid of everyone involved, and if not, he would get rid of the whole village. Yvonne said in a frightened voice that simply couldn't be. Carl said she wouldn't do anything now because of the heavy rain. But you never know when trouble will come. So if she can too, let her go to the marquee too. With these words he gave her a cloak to keep her warm, and said that then he would find her. Let her take care of herself. When he was about to go out, Yvonne ran up to him and told him to wait. Let him wait too, because it was still raining hard. Carl looked at her, smiled, and said he couldn't linger near him. She was in more danger. He said her help was invaluable and he owed her a debt of gratitude. So he said he would take it from there. Carl is really grateful. He'll never forget her. All this time he had nothing to protect, nothing dear to his heart. He said that when he came back he would be sure to protect her. He promised her that. When the girl said he could call her Lillian Lou. When Carl heard that, he said she even had a pretty name, although he said Lou was a better name for her. Then Lillian said, did he really know she was a girl? And from what moment? Then he didn't just call her eyes beautiful because he was hungry. Carl laughed but then said that he would survive and come back. With him she would know no grief. He would protect her, so she should survive too. He went up to Lillian, kissed her on the forehead and told her not to forget him. The girl's tears came, and she was very sad. When he left, she said in a hollow voice that they would definitely meet again. Remembering all these moments, Yvonne woke up and saw the picture in front of her. It depicts an unknown prince and princess who loved each other so much that they died on the same day and at the same hour. They were in front of her eyes again, and the girl didn't understand how she could forget about her mom and risk everything. If she had made a different choice as a child, she and her mom would have been happy. But suddenly, when she turned her head, she saw Carl sitting next to her. This surprised her very much, so she immediately asked what he was doing here. But the man said she had blurted out the name Carl in her dream. The girl said he must have misheard, and thought to herself, why would she call that idiot in her dream? Now the dream made her feel even more uncomfortable. At that moment, Carl took her hand, and she didn't know why he did it. Then he said he was worried about her. Yvonne wondered if she was still asleep and had another dream. But the girl thought that she wasn't the same Lillian now, so she shouldn't give in to her feelings anymore. Then she said that he had a lot of things to do, so he shouldn't have come because of her. Carl took his hand away and said there was nothing strange about her husband being worried. Not anymore. He's glad she's awake and unhurt. Yvonne didn't understand what it was with him, but then decided it wasn't worth entertaining illusions, or she'd end up like last time again. Then she said that she thought he was not at peace in his mind because of what he had seen, so he should rest better and go too. Carl was surprised but said okay, he wouldn't bother her again, so let her rest and left. Lillian thought that if the same thing happened again, she wouldn't survive. After he left, the girl tried to sleep, but the doctor came to her. This is Malin. He is the doctor who covered up the cuts and scars inflicted by the Duke. The girl thought that he must be serving only him. Malin too was puzzled as to how she could survive drinking poison. The girl didn't know how she could fool him. The doctor said it was as if heaven had helped her, if the Emperor hadn't had time to give her the antidote. Lillian was very surprised to hear this. She was the one who asked how that was so. Malin asked if she didn't know that His Majesty had given her the antidote, which he always kept with him. Why was she so surprised? The Croatian had always been aware of poisons, and their Emperor, moreover, was very scrupulous about it. Lillian now realized that Carl had saved her. She didn't understand. If he chose to be cruel to her, then be to the end. Why do all this? The doctor examined her and told her that she would have to rest for a few weeks, follow a strict diet, and take her medication on a schedule. Afterward, he asked her to give him her hand. When he touched it, he said he was afraid the poison would make itself known. but apparently it was fine. He asked to be notified if the scars reappeared. Malin said that the Duke was very worried about her. He would pay a visit as soon as he knew she had recovered. The girl was very surprised that he said he was worried, because the Duke had actually shown her nothing but cruelty. Her entire body is scarred from the beatings, and on top of that, he put a spell on her. Lillian just laughs at the words that the Duke was worried, but she needs to build up her strength before he comes, so she tells the doctor he can go. At this time, the Emperor, sitting in his study, asked Gorton how the Empress felt about him. Gorton was very nervous. He said he didn't understand his question at all. Then Carl asked if he thought the girl hated him. His assistant said that from the way he treats her, he can tell for sure that Carl is not to her liking. However, he wouldn't be able to say that she outright hates him. He wouldn't even know how to put it. After a little silence, Gorton said that the Emperor had never shown the Empress proper attention. Carl thought it was true. If Yvonne hated him, she would smash everything she could get her hands on. Then the man thought. The Emperor thought that Kiana was right after all. It would be pointless to confront the Duke alone, so he thought that Yvonne should be involved, and then use her to destroy the Duke. He figured there was no other way to win her to his side than to use her feelings. The problem was that he couldn't know for sure if she'd fall for his game. Then he said that it was necessary to somehow get close to the Empress. Gorton was surprised and asked if he had finally made up his mind to do so. He said he hoped the Emperor knew where to start, even though he had always been cold to women. It won't be easy, and there was no one to teach him how to court. The Emperor said it was not surprising, and looked out of the window in thought. At that time, the Duke ran into Yvonne's room and asked what had happened. The girl was sitting quietly on the sofa and drinking tea. When he came closer to her, she said she didn't know herself, and asked if he was sure he hadn't made a mistake. The Duke got angry, and asked if she thought he might have made a mistake, if she hadn't come up with the whole plan. Yvonne asked how she could do such a thing and leave her mother. She said she didn't know and wondered if the Marquis Rodin had done it. He can afford you a lot, since his daughter is the second Empress. At that moment, Miriam entered their room. She greeted the Empress and the Duke, and said that His Majesty had sent something for her. At that moment, many maids began to enter their room, and Miriam said that the Emperor wished her a speedy recovery. The maids had many gifts and flowers in their hands. The Duke took the note from the Emperor and read, "I wish you a speedy recovery." He wondered what game this madman was up to again. But at that moment, another maid came in and carried over the beautiful necklace earrings called wolf tears. Everyone was shocked. Wolf's Tears is a ruling dynasty necklace that has been passed down from generation to generation by empresses. If one were to continue this tradition, it would be proper to present it to the Empress as a wedding gift. But Yvonne didn't understand why on earth the Emperor had only sent her the necklace now. The Duke was simply furious when he saw all this. He asked if he had finally decided to recognize her as Empress, only after she had returned from the other world. Then he asked his daughter what the Emperor had said to her. He believes that not a word. Yvonne replied that it was nothing much, he just said he was worried. The Duke was even more angry at those words. He asked what he meant by worried, he and about her. But the girl answered nothing. Then the Duke thought and asked, or the two of them had already managed to unite behind his back. Yvonne asked if the rumors didn't report to him that they didn't say the Emperor despised her more than a stone on the side of the road. She said that if they watched, they would find out what the Emperor was up to since he was acting this way. Duke moved his hand off her shoulder and asked, she thought it was a trick too. Yvonne asked, who would think otherwise, it's obvious. Back from the dead, she had changed Emperor. He is clearly up to something. The girl said she would follow him to find out what he was up to. The Duke looked at her suspiciously and asked what had gotten into her, the little girl who only knew how to nod like a sick bird. Yvonne replied that she had one foot in the grave and had come to her senses, and God only knows when someone would try to poison her like that again. And also the fact that she misses her mom is also taking its toll. The Duke smiled and said as he left that he would try to find out what she could from their Emperor. As the door slammed shut, Yvonne figured he wouldn't suspect her of the case for a while. But Yvonne doesn't know when things will change, and he'll grab her by the throat again. Since she came back from the dead, no. She couldn't even die properly and stay alive. She'll never be able to change like before, so she has to change. The Emperor, who sat and talked with Kiana the next day, asked if the person who had neglected them sent wolf tears. Would he treat him differently? Charles replied that of course they thought it was some kind of trick. The Duke and the Empress are not fools. The Marquis was sitting next to them. He said that it didn't look like a ruse, rather the opposite. He feared that the nobles would feel lawless. Kiana asked the Emperor then now, knowing full well their reaction, as if he would turn over his palms and show a different attitude. Karl replied that he did not know what was troubling her so much. He called her Lady Roden, and then the girl was very much surprised. She laughed afterward and said that if anyone heard them, they would think they were complete strangers to each other. The Marquis only knows that he and Kiana are going to use the Empress to attack the Duke. He is unaware of their contract. When the guy smiled and said, "That's right," Kiana says, in order not to arouse suspicion. But the girl said that he must now call her Empress, even if there had been a poisoning at the coronation, the blame for which was unjustly laid on her. Her new title had not been revoked. The Marquis was very much surprised and asked what other poisoning was there. He turned to His Majesty and said it was a definite mistake. The Duke, in attempting to kill them, Kiano. How could he put his little girl in such danger? But the girl told her father that she would no longer be safe from his tears. Instead, she'd better let her think of an actual way to overthrow the Duke. And the father was very much surprised and asked her what she was saying. But Carloy agreed with her and said that what had already happened could not be changed, so he'd better look after the nobles. The Marquis was not satisfied. That's because the Emperor is in favor of it too. Marquis Rodin, though the head of a family that has been loyal to the ruling family for generations, because of his cowardice, he just silently observed the situation and waited for the opportune moment to quietly avoid his duties. But fortunately, Kiana managed to tie him up at this point. The Marquis turned to His Majesty and said that he had no children after all, so he could not understand his feelings. But Carloy said that it was the Marquis's job to keep out the might of the nobles who were on the Duke's side. The man replied that it would be as easy as lip service. He asked, hadn't he said that before? He is not someone who can lead the nobles. The Emperor looked at him tentatively and asked, really? Kiana took her father's hand and asked him to stop. And afterward she transferred you and asked why he hadn't touched the bread again. The Marquis said the bread is hard as a rock, and the Emperor hates anything that comes out of the Delois lands. But he buys jam. The Marquis said that the Emperor doesn't like Corda, so he will tell another emperor to bring it. At this point, a thought crossed his mind. After that, Carloy said that he would order him to bring whatever the Marquis wanted. Maybe then he would stop whining. But then Kiana intervened in the conversation. She said that in any case, if it became apparent that he was up to something, even pulling the Empress to their side, she would keep him at a distance. She asked if it was better to proceed in a measured manner. Carloy replied that if you listened to her like that, he had confessed his love to the girl. He merely expressed his intention to recognize the Empress, and the beginning sets the tone. Kiana stepped closer to him and asked, she so much as sent a reply regarding His Majesty's favor. But Carloy didn't answer anything. He just sipped his tea, and that was all. Kiana looked at him and said that was certainly a good start. At this time at Yvonne Manor, Marion came into the girl's room and asked her what she was thinking about. It was her way of thinking. Yvonne, who had previously been looking out the window, said it was just the thought of seeing her mom sooner. The maid took the girl's hands and told her not to worry. She gave Jane an errand to run if anything happened to Denise. She would be sure to write the secret code in the letter. Yvonne looked at her and said that her daughter would not dare to disobey. But being with her mother, apart like this, Yvonne thought was too dangerous. She must find a reason to get herself out of the palace as soon as possible. She must think of a way to fall under the Duke's suspicion and return to her mother. Yvonne said that because of the Duke's surveillance, her daughter can't send the letter freely. That was why she was so grateful to Jane. But at that moment, another maid came in to see them. She said that His Majesty had sent a message. The maid had a bouquet of flowers in her hands. She said that the Emperor had said that he wanted to dine together in the main building of the palace in the evening, and had also sent this bouquet. Marion immediately went to them and asked what it was they were saying. Isn't this message for the second Empress? But the maid said there was no mistake. This message was specifically for the first Empress. Yvonne thought that the main building of the palace was the most personal place for the Emperor, and he had invited her there. Marian took the bouquet in her hands and asked Her Majesty what she would do. Yvonne thought it would be a good idea to meet first so she would have a plan. So getting up from her chair, she said she would be there at the appointed time. Then the maid asked her what to do with the flowers, if she could put them in her room. Yvonne told her to do so, but she didn't know what she was going to do with flowers that didn't have an ounce of sincerity in them. Marian said that she didn't understand what was going on at all. Was His Majesty really shocked that she had almost died? But Yvonne replied that it was hardly so. The girl wondered what he was up to, and she would only find out when she met him. But a few hours later, a maid came in to see the emperor and told him that she would not be able to come. Carloy was surprised and asked why. The maid replied that Her Majesty was not feeling well. The emperor asked if she hadn't said before that she would be getting ready, but the maid simply bowed and said she was sorry. Carloy said that the empress was so unsteady in her decisions. After that, he added that he understood everything and the maid could go. At that time, there was a terrible scream in the empress's palace. Marian scolded the maid, saying that she had been listening to Her Majesty for over a year, and that she didn't know Yvonne couldn't go near the rituals. The maid only replied that she hadn't noticed that. Marian became even more angry. She asked how could they not notice such brightly colored flowers? Did she take them for fools? Yvonne was lying in bed at that moment, not feeling well. The maid asked, "Can white flowers be called bright? They're just white." She, too, had only just seen that it was them. Lady Anson is the younger sister of Count Anson, no different from the Duke of Delois. Perhaps this lady is the one who often makes mistakes, because her main task is to keep an eye on Yvonne, the rest she neglects. Anson shouted and said there was only one Ritun brush. How was she supposed to know? Marian asked if that was her excuse. The doctor who was examining Yvonne shouted at the girls and said that Her Majesty needed rest, and what the hell were they doing here in the first place? The maids apologized to him. Then the doctor asked, "Isn't the Emperor aware that Her Majesties can't go near Ritun flowers?" The Duke of Delois has the same symptoms. He must have had some idea. At this point, everyone was thinking, and Anson said that did His Majesty send the Rituns on purpose. The people present were shocked by her statement. When Marian came to her senses a bit, she immediately yelled for the girl to come out, because she couldn't listen to this anymore. Anson asked Her Majesty's pardon before the door. Then Marian approached the Empress and told her to disregard Lady Anson's words. She laughed a nervous laugh, and asked if His Majesty thought he would do such a thing. Yvonne replied that of course he wouldn't do it on purpose. It's just that this man doesn't know anything about her, and isn't even interested. Carloy would hate the girl even more, if he knew that even in this she resembled the Duke. So maybe it would be better to let her always remain in ignorance. Then Yvonne turned to another maid named Ruin, and asked if she had told His Majesty that she would not be able to come to dinner tonight. The maid replied that she had. Gabrielle Ruin, the youngest daughter of Viscount Meshkorshi, Count Anson's vassal. She is originally from a family whose members cannot serve at court, but thanks to Anson she has become a maid of honor, and seems to appreciate it very much. Anyway, the Duke put her on Yvonne's watch list, so it's still the same thing. Ruin asked Her Majesty, maybe at least now, to inform her that she was made ill by the Ritun, but Yvonne replied that she shouldn't. Then the maid said that His Majesty thought she had made up an excuse not to go to dinner. Marian was surprised, but the Empress told her it was fine. Let her not worry about it. When the maid wanted to object to something, Yvonne interrupted her and asked Ruin what the Emperor had said. The girl said that since that was the case, he invited her to dinner the next day in the evening. Yvonne replied, okay, and said she needed to rest, so they could both go. As the door closed, the girl rolled over onto her side and thought she was so pathetic. She decided to act, and here she was so weak again. She didn't understand why even her body features were the same as Duke's. Yvonne misses her mom very much. It was a mystery to her why Carlroy had sent the Rituns in particular. She hates him for it, really hates him, but still something keeps her from forgetting. When the next evening came, Yvonne went to his house for dinner after all. She was beautifully dressed. When the girl entered the room, the Emperor immediately stood up and said that he had heard that she was a bit unwell. Apparently, she had not yet fully recovered from the poison. Yvonne replied that no, she just felt a little sick. Carloy thought at that moment that if it wasn't the poison, then what was it? Then he said that nevertheless, seeing that she was in good health gave him peace of mind. Yvonne said that's how. Carloy replied, of course. What did she think he didn't want to see her well? Carloy got a little embarrassed and said that he had just misspoken, and it did bother him. He hoped there wasn't a misunderstanding between them. After that, he suggested that they sit down and talk. The maids who were standing next to the Empress began to whisper. Anson told her partner that she was right after all, and he did it on purpose. But Yvonne continued to just stand there and watch. Then the Emperor asked why she did not sit down. Miriam said, "His Majesty, that if the Empress goes near the rattoon flowers, I will penetrate her skin and she will become ill." Carloy got a little upset and told them to put the flowers away now. And he thought to himself that he didn't even know that, and he himself was trying to engage the Empress. Then he realized that the girls had passed on the Duke's features after all, and it really annoyed him. When the flowers started to be taken away, he said he was sorry. He didn't know about it. After that, they sat in silence. They were soon served their food. Yvonne didn't touch her plate, her hands clenched into fists. Carloy didn't understand what it was this time. Then he asked her if something wasn't to her liking. Miriam, who already wanted to answer for the Empress, said that it wasn't that. But Yvonne interrupted her and said that His Majesty, if he intended to bully her, had better choose another way. Carloy did not understand what she meant.